Welcome to episode 7 in my 12 Weaves of Christmas series. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make a really cute little Willow Robin. For this make, you will need a pair of sharp secateurs and some material to weave with. In this video, I'm weaving with steamed willow, which has turned it a dark brown colour, and I'm using some locally foraged willows in reds and oranges for the breast. From the brown bundle of willow, I've taken out a few strands and I'm making a small willow hoop. I've really taken my time with this first bit of the weaving to make sure that the hoop I'm making is small and it's not got kinks in it. I want my hoop to be really strong and I'm just using 2 strands of willow to weave it. So I'm making sure with the second strand that I start off with the thick end of the willow, which is called the butt, at the halfway mark on the hoop. This means that as the hoop is completed, there is strong material all around the hoop structure. To start my second hoop, I've started off in exactly the same way and I've measured the first hoop to the second hoop to make sure that they're exactly the same size as each other. I've then added 2 strands in all to the second hoop. Once both hoops are completed, I've manipulated them to make sure that they are a lovely round shape, and I've cut off any of the excess thick willow. I've then interlocked the 2 hoops together to make sure that they fit snugly, and I've started to create a third hoop of willow. I've put this third hoop, before I start weaving it, around the other 2 to make sure that it fits snugly over the top. Once I've made sure it fits, I've completed the third hoop in exactly the same way as number 1 and number 2. I now need to lash the 2 hoops together, and I've done this starting with a tip. I found a nice tight bit in the weave on one of the hoops and then threaded my new piece of willow around it. I've made a simple diagonal weave across both hoops to lash them together. Once this first side is secure, I've moved on to the bottom of the hoops and done the same at that end. And once both ends are attached, I've then used the rest of the willow to weave around the 2 hoops. I've attached the third hoop over the top of the first 2 hoops, and then I've gone round with a tip and attached all the new connections, which is 4 in all, to the other 2 hoops. Any material that's left over from my tip, I've then woven through the new structure. Very quickly this will start to form a ball shape. Once all the strands are attached, I've then added new rods into the ball and woven around over and over again until I've got a nice ball shape. In order to make a really good ball shape, if you go over 2 of the hoops, that will create an arch. But it's really important to make sure that the structure is also woven as you go along, because it's the weaving that will make the structure strong and will stay together. So in order to do this, initially as I started weaving, I started with the tips and made sure that they were anchored well into the ball before I started. And then as it became more and more difficult to finish with the thick end of the material, I reversed it and started working with the thick end of the material and ended on tips. Think about using the thicker part of the willow as the structure to give you your round ball shape, and think about the thinner end of the material doing more and more of the weaving to bind it together and to make a strong structure. I'm also making sure as I weave that all of the thick end of the material is on the inside of the ball, and as I finish with the tips, they are also finished off inside the ball. That way I have to do minimal cutting and the ball will look more dense because of all of the material inside of it. Once I'm happy with my scruffy weave and I've got a ball shaped structure, I've added a beak. I've simply gone in with the thick end first, the butt, brought it through to the other side of the ball, kinked it at the point where I'm happy with the size of the beak, and then threaded the tip end back through the ball. I've made sure with the tip end that I've done lots of weaving, so that the beak is really well attached. Next, I've got out my foraged red and orange willows, and I've used these to create the famous robin redbreast. I've mainly gone round in circular motions underneath the beak, but I've made sure that it's very well woven as I go. This will create a strong structure and pleasing lines. I have layered up this part of the weaving, going around and around in circles, but making sure as I go around that the weave is regularly woven into the structure. This way, the circular weaves that I'm trying to create are anchored in as they go around, allowing me to create this shape very close to each other. Next, I've added 2 legs. I've used a green piece of willow for this bit, just for a contrasting colour. This willow is also slightly drier and doesn't have as much flexibility as the other willow I've so far added. I'm not expecting it to do any particular weaving, so it doesn't need to be very flexible. I've used one of the red pieces of willow to then attach the leg to the body at the bottom of the structure. I've gone in with the thick end first, made sure it's secure into the ball, and then I've wrapped it around each leg a couple of times. I've then taken it back off into the body and woven it back into the breast of the bird. Taking time and attention to do this with each leg means that it's really well secured into the body. Once I'm happy with them, I've cut off the top of the legs, which is popping out of the top of the head, inside the weave so they're not visible. Next, I have added some string to the top of my ball. Once the bird is complete, I will be able to use this to hang my bird from something. They look particularly good dangling from trees or as part of your Christmas tree decorations. Finally, I need to add some tail feathers at the end. So far, I have created a very stylised robin. So to keep that theme going, I've simply added a thicker rod at the end, which is going to become my tail. I've pushed the thick end through the ball, kinked the willow twice to give me a squared off shape at the end, and then threaded it back through the ball. Any remaining tip is well woven into the body again to make sure that it's well connected to the structure. To complete the look, I've simply woven in between this new added piece to the ball with a simple figure of 8 weave. Because I have 2 rods that I'm weaving around in effect, I'm always going around one corner, through the middle, round the other corner, and then back through the middle. With repeated weaves, this feels like a figure of 8 motion. To finish it off, I've cut all the remaining willow from the sides to create nice clean lines. Finally, I've used my secateurs just to snip the bottom of the feet. And that's it, your Willow Robin is now complete. This cute little ball will look fantastic dangling from anywhere as part of your Christmas decorations this year. I hope you enjoy weaving it as much as I did. If you've enjoyed episode 7, do have a look at my other 12 Weaves of Christmas episodes. I hope you have as much fun weaving them as I did.